Welcome to Semiconductor News Decoded. I'm Ty, with 31 years inside the semiconductor industry, bringing you the real view from the factory floor. Today's topic: Semi and 23 other industry companies have formally requested that the U.S. Congress extend the Advanced Manufacturing Investment Credit, the AMIC, for multiple years. As always, I'll explain everything in the most simplified way possible. Even a middle schooler should be able to follow along. If you're a specialist watching, some parts may feel oversimplified, but I'd like to prioritize giving everyone the big picture first. Think of it as factory builders asking the government to keep a critical tax break alive. So sit back and enjoy. Here's today's news in one sentence. Companies planning to build enormous, highly precise candy factories have gone to the government and said, please keep the tax reduction program going, the one that lets us deduct part of our factory construction costs. That's the story at its core. To explain a bit more, building a factory costs a staggering amount of money. A new facility capable of making extremely sophisticated candy products, once you add up the machinery, land, and buildings, can easily run into the hundreds of billions of yen. So the government put in place a system saying, we'll reduce your tax bill by up to 35% of what you invest. That safety net is what gave companies the confidence to say, yes, let's build the factory. The problem is, this tax reduction system has an expiration date. If it disappears when that date arrives, companies start thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't build the factory after all. Building a factory can take 10 to 20 years, so if there's any chance the support gets cut off midway, companies hesitate to start in the first place. On top of that, every other country in the world is also trying to build similar factories, competing with, come build in our country and we'll give you an even better deal. If the US ends its support, companies will simply say, then we'll build where the deal is better. That's why industry representatives have gone to Congress with this request. Please keep this program going. Of course, this analogy has its limits. What's actually being built isn't candy factories. It's something far more complex and precise and deeply intertwined with national security. From here, let me walk you through what this actually looks like in the real semiconductor industry. This is where the real analysis begins. The main actor in today's news is SEMI, the International Trade Association for the Semiconductor and Electronics Industry. SEMI counts semiconductor manufacturers, equipment makers, and materials companies from around the world among its members, conducting standardization activities and policy advocacy. SEMI, along with 23 other companies, has submitted a formal request to the U.S. Congress to extend the AMIC, the Advanced Manufacturing Investment Credit, for multiple years. I've described this kind of industry lobbying as necessary coercion. I'll explain what I mean by that shortly. Let me explain what the AMIC actually is. Its full name is the Advanced Manufacturing Investment Credit. It was established as part of the CHIPS and Science Act signed into law in 2022, and it allows companies to claim a tax credit of up to 35% of their investment in semiconductor manufacturing facilities. Unlike a direct subsidy, it works by directly reducing the tax that an investing company would otherwise owe, dollar for dollar off the bill. Why has this extension request come now? Building a semiconductor fab, from planning through completion, typically takes 5 to 10 years or more, and the investment involved runs into the hundreds of billions to trillions of yen. To commit to a long-term, large-scale investment like this, companies need solid assurance that government support will continue for 10 or 20 years into the future. The uncertainty created by AMIC having an expiration date creates a very real risk of freezing investment decisions. Let's look at the global competitive environment. China continues to pour enormous state-directed investment into its semiconductor industry. The EU has enacted the European Chips Act to strengthen domestic manufacturing. South Korea and Taiwan both provide generous support to their own industries. In this global race, if the US eliminates its tax incentives, it places itself at a structural disadvantage. Investment money flowing toward whichever country offers the best tax treatment is simply rational economics. From my time in the industry, the point I think is most important here is the combined effect of grants and tax incentives. The CHIPS Act direct grants help fund facility construction, while AMIC provides a tax benefit on the equipment and tools actually installed. Grants alone can't cover the full scope of capital expenditure. AMIC is what brings the effective cost of investment down enough to make the economics of a fab actually work. Let me dig deeper into what I meant by necessary coercion. When an industry association makes a request like this to the government, the implicit message is, if the support isn't there, we'll direct our investment elsewhere. That may sound like a threat, but in the actual logic of economics and national security, it's entirely rational. Semiconductor manufacturing capability is foundational infrastructure for national defense, AI, healthcare, and every other industry. There's also a challenge I want to highlight: the need for rigorous measurement of what each tax dollar actually delivers. From the perspective of ordinary taxpayers, it's completely fair to ask, why should our taxes go toward building factories for large corporations? Since it is taxpayers' money being deployed, there has to be a structured, ongoing process to verify that the investment is producing results. Are jobs being created? Is technology being transferred? Is domestic supply capacity actually increasing? A few technical points worth adding. Advanced manufacturing, as defined for AMIC, covers not just leading-edge logic semiconductors at the smallest node sizes, but also memory and power semiconductors. The intent is to diversify the U.S. domestic production base and reduce dependence on any single product type or geography. The fact that companies like TSMC, Samsung, and Intel are building and expanding fabs in the United States is itself a direct result of the combination of CHIPS grants and AMIC incentives. The list of 23 companies that signed alongside SEMI is also significant. Equipment makers, materials companies, and EDA tool vendors, companies spanning both the upstream and downstream of the semiconductor supply chain, all added their names. This signals that AMIC isn't just a benefit for a handful of large chip makers, it supports the entire industrial ecosystem. That breadth is itself a strong policy argument for continuation. Let me also touch on the congressional outlook. Extending AMIC requires a congressional decision, and given the fiscal constraints in play, there will inevitably be debate about the budgetary impact. That said, semiconductors tend to enjoy bipartisan support. The framing around national security, job creation, and technological competitiveness resonates with both parties, and the odds of an extension being approved are generally viewed as reasonably good. One more angle worth considering: the implications for Japan. Japan is also moving forward with new semiconductor fabs in Kumamoto and Hokkaido, but the long-term tax incentive framework there is still far from fully developed. The American debate over extending AMIC is an important precedent for thinking about what kind of durable support structure Japan needs to design. And speaking personally, after 31 years in this industry, I still feel a deep sense of regret that Japan's insufficient investment in its semiconductor industry years ago contributed to its decline. Let me recap today's content. SEMI and 23 companies have formally requested that the U.S. Congress extend the AMIC for multiple years. AMIC provides a tax credit of up to 35% of investment, and in combination with direct CHIPS grants, it makes the economics of long-term, large-scale semiconductor fab investment workable. Building a fab takes 5 to 10+ years, and long-term policy continuity is essential. In a world where every major nation is racing to strengthen its semiconductor manufacturing base, withdrawing support risks capital flight. At the same time, since taxpayer money is involved, building in a system to verify outcomes in terms of jobs, technology, and supply capacity is equally essential. My conclusion: SEMI's request is exactly what a responsible industry body should be doing, and the logic of its argument is sound. But from the perspective of ordinary taxpayers, the question of why should our money go to large corporations' factory projects is entirely legitimate, And without a clear answer and visible proof of results, broad public support will not follow. The critical companion piece to any tax incentive or subsidy must be a structured, recurring process to measure its effectiveness and feed findings back into policy. That is the non-negotiable condition for maintaining public trust in industrial policy over the long run. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis, so if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.